The receivers that lined up with the ones last week, it might surprise you.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Happy Charlie Tuesday to all who celebrate. Auburn message board legend and host of the top Button Podcast Charlie5 hanging out with us today. And we're going to talk about the receiver situation. And then later in the show, we will hear from Auburn quarterback Hank Brown, the baby goat himself. Let's go. But first things first, just talking to more and more folks, we kind of got a clearer picture of what all went down in the first week of spring practice. And once again, adding the caveat, it's the first week of spring practice. They have to have a starting kind of depth chart, and it usually slants towards the older guys, and that's exactly what it seems like it happened. But, we all assume Cam Coleman's going to be wide receiver one. He did sound like take most of his reps with the twos last week. Any cause for concern there, Charlie5? I'm just asking the question.
I wouldn't say yet. I
think we're okay. Yeah.
Again, you could look at pictures of him and video clips of him running routes and things like that, and know that there's not quite room for concern yet. But that's expected. He's not going to come in. He hasn't even really had any time to get in the playbook whatsoever. So I would say zero concerns, and I would predict that probably changes over the next couple of weeks when the guys get back from spring break and put the pads on it and start getting after it.
So it sounds like the outside starting wide receivers on one side, Camden Brown and Sam Jackson, the former Cal quarterback, were rotating at one outside receiver while the other was Caleb Burton. And it seems like Caleb Burton's taken most of his snaps. Once again, it's the first week of spring practice, but took most of them an outside wide receiver. We talked about that over the last few weeks leading into spring camp. How does this staff view Caleb Burton? Is he a slot guy? Is he an outside guy? Is he both? Sounds like he's more of an outside guy, which is what we saw him do mostly in the bowl game. And so maybe that truly was kind of preparing, using that situation to prepare for this season. So I thought that was worth noting. And really just Sam Jackson being an outside guy, I don't know why. I just assume usually when you see quarterbacks that transition to being a wide receiver, they're kind of your slot guy. But that doesn't seem to be the case with Sam Jackson so far.
No, and I think this says a lot early, him being put in, outside receiver, because I think most people, when we saw that addition, the first thing that goes off in your head is maybe like gadget guy, not necessarily not really like a true wide receiver. It doesn't get more true wide receiver than an outside wide receiver.
True.
And for him to be there and in kind of like a 1B, I guess, like rotating with Cam Brown on the outside, that says a ton about where they see him and maybe where he's already at from a development standpoint, being able to transition right into being a wide receiver. So that's something that I think is going to be interesting to watch moving forward. I'm very shocked.
Too. Yeah,
I'm very, very shocked by that. I'm like you, gadget guy, interior, slot, stuff like that, jet sweeps. Not a true outside wide receiver. That is that's something I'm going to be paying attention to.
Yeah, Auburn has Sam Jackson listed at 5'11", 195. So that's not your typical outside wide receiver in a Hugh Freeze offense, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing how they use them. That was a storyline going into it. That will continue to be a storyline throughout spring for sure. Jay Fair and Robert Lewis rotated at slot with the ones. I don't think there's anything surprising there. There was speculation about, is Robert Lewis an inside guy or an outside guy? And it sounds like he took more snaps at slot, but he also took snaps outside as well. I think they feel comfortable in Robert Lewis's ability to do both, which is what he did at Georgia State, but he did take more snaps outside at Georgia State than he did in the slot. That may be reversed during his time at Auburn.
I would have thought he would have been an outside guy for sure, because I felt like that's what the biggest need we had to have from the portal at wide receiver was on the outside. And to see him get more reps on the inside, what does that mean? Does that mean
Can I tell you what I think it means? Do you mind?
Yeah,
I think it's they believe in Caleb Burton as an outside wide receiver. That to me is what it means, I think.
Well, sure. Him being there was nobody rotating with him in the ones.
I don't think so. Based on all the information that I've put together, I don't think so. I think he was primarily the guy out there.
And I like that. I like some of the plays that he got to run outside this past season. He can beat that guy inside on that slant. I like that. And again, I think where I was kind of going with that is exactly where you just went is, I expected Robert Lewis to be on the outside, but you see Caleb Burton is the only one who doesn't seem to be splitting reps right now with the ones at the outside. That could be a reason why you move Robert Lewis, who could play both. It's good stuff.
Yeah, the timing of Perry coming in, it continues to be interesting. So it's like we all expect Cam Coleman to hop Camden Brown and Sam Jackson on that side. I don't think anybody expects that to hold true to the starting point of spring. Or unless I guess Cam Coleman could hop Caleb Burton, but I don't think that makes sense. That just doesn't make sense in my brain, but I guess that could happen. But like how Perry fits into all of this, which is proof that the roster is better because now you actually have options. It's not like, oh my gosh, please, can somebody step up? Now it's going to be, if you don't perform at a high level, you're not going to get a shot, which is great. That's exactly what we need at every position on the field, and we're getting more of that. We've talked about that with receiver, with linebacker, with these DBs, but yeah, it's just going to be fun to see this puzzle kind of slowly come together. And they may have an idea of it, Charlie5, but with the guys that are here for spring, which is great, but then the summer's going to roll around and some of these older guys that maybe kind of see the writing on the wall may enter the portal. Oh, and Perry Thompson's coming in and Malcolm Simmons is coming in, and then you're going to have to do it again in the fall.
Exactly. Or you're going to have to redo everything you did in the spring. Exactly. Right. That's another thing. We've had 2 practices, which, it's fun. You get to see clips. You get a little bit of action. You get a little bit of a visual of what's going on. Then they take the 2 weeks off. Then they take the week off for spring break. One thing we got to remember is there's some guys, but there's not a lot of guys. So some dudes are just there by default. You know what I mean? Some dudes are in spots by default, and we got to work our way through this whole thing. So
who would you say is there by default? Do you feel comfortable answering that?
Well, I mean, in the starting, I guess the starting guys, Cam Brown and Sam Jackson, who else would go there, I guess, is my question. Coy Moore. I mean, there's not really anybody else to put there, and then flip flop to the other side where you got Caleb Burton.
None of the guys I talked to and the sources I talked to, none of them mentioned Coy Moore. Now that you mention it, and I thought he looked good in the viewing window. I thought Coy looked very, very jumpy, very explosive, and had some bursts out of the cuts. So yeah, I need to circle back and ask about him.
Yeah, and I think I was told he caught a touchdown from Peyton. So he caught. So at some point in time,
maybe he's rotating with Caleb Burton, and I misunderstood that.
Well, but regardless, what I'm trying to say is, this is like the super fun time of spring where you can kind of take the little bit of information that you get and you can build all kinds of different scenarios. And but then all of it can change, and then all of it's going to could possibly change after spring, after the next portal, and then you bring the new guys in. The new young guys in the summer. So,
and them doing 2 practices, which are arguably the 2 most least important practices that they'll have because they're not even in pads yet, and then being off for a week for just to stew and us to continue to speculate and kind of hope that any of this information that leaks out that we kind of can hold on to and piece together. And it's like, does this even matter? I don't know. But yeah, the fact that we got to go now a week, we got football, spring football's back. And it's like, okay, now you got to wait a week. It's kind of weird. Yeah. I asked Hank about that later in the show today too. So,
and not only is it a week, but it's a week with no pads. So it's like you said, it's literally the 2 most unimportant practices they could possibly have.
That's right.
They just had.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
I'm sorry. I'm trying not to cough
with
on
that.
you.
No, you're getting over it. You're getting over something pretty crummy. So I'm glad that you're powering through. We appreciate it. All right, so that's how spring started, we believe. How could it end? We discuss in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel's America's #1 sports book. You can get buckets with your first bet over at FanDuel, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. And also, there are futures that are out there on FanDuel.com/lockedon. Auburn set at 7.5 wins. And if you're listening to this wide receiver talk and you're like, yes, that was the missing piece in all of this, Auburn's going to win more than 7 games. Give me the over. Head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now to shoot your shot. And you can win $150 in bonus bets. Very easy, very fun. FanDuel's the official sports betting partner of the NBA and, of course, the Locked On Podcast Network. Happy Charlie Tuesday to all who celebrate. Auburn message board legend, host of the Top Button Podcast, the Charlie5, hanging out with us. So we're all in agreement. Cam Coleman will ascend and be in a situation to be wide receiver 1. So my question to you is, okay, what else needs to fall into place? I'm really high on Caleb Burton, and especially after hearing what I've heard of the first week, and even though it is the 2 most least important practices, I'm still continue to be very high on Caleb Burton. But the guy after that, and I guess we would need to look at the slot receiver, like, is it the best case for Auburn if Robert Lewis just becomes the dude, like it becomes the guy in the slot? Or is it better for Auburn for Jay Fair to continue to develop and become the dude in the slot? What's better for Auburn, do you think, Charlie5?
One of them being good. One of them being the guy. Like, I don't know that,
which is probably going to happen, right? Like, you feel like one of those guys is going to take a step.
Yeah, I don't know that there's like a better scenario for Auburn one way or the other. We just need a one of those guys to step up and be a stud slot guy. And both of them have shown the ability to be able to be that guy. Jay Fair, I know he's going to have some like gaining back to do. I think he kind of went through what I went through, struggled with the flu, lost a ton of weight. So he's going to have to build all that back over the next couple of weeks, as well as sort of be in a position battle. So obviously you kind of want the guy who's been here to you have sort of feelings there towards him. He's been here for Auburn. He's battled for Auburn. So you want him, to have a good shot, and you want to see him succeed. But on the flip side, there's a lot of upside to being able to show that you can bring in a portal guy from a lower conference. Hey, I can step up at Auburn and I can increase my draft stock. I can increase my NFL stock. So
I love that you said that. And we talked about this a little bit last week. Like, Robert Lewis is important for Auburn, not just for this season, but if Robert Lewis comes in and has a similar stat line to
holy cow, man. Yeah.
Shane Hooks, like if you're a veteran wide receiver, that is going to be used to like be negatively recruited against for the foreseeable future, because you can point to Caleb Burton. That's fine. Get the guy who's a redshirt freshman to transfer to your program. Like, that's cool. That makes sense. But like, and we'll need some of that. The Dylan Cindas of the world is like, okay, your spot in the future roster makes sense. But the benefit of the transfer portal is if you have a glaring need, you want to be able to go out and get it. And like, we can point to tackle and say like, okay, yeah, we can use you. And, I think we can point to linebacker to some extent as well and pass rusher, but yeah, we can't point to receiver yet. I mean, we have continually struck out there in a short amount of time. So I think Robert Lewis's production is important, not only for 2024, but for future transfer additions. I think it's huge.
Oh, and you can't, I would not underemphasize that. I think when you have the poor track record that you had with the additions that you made at wide receiver from the portal this past offseason, for whatever reason that those didn't work out, if you back it up with another one with Robert Lewis, who was a very, very successful wide receiver at Georgia State last year, and it sort of looks the same, boy, you want to talk about having a hard time talking about having to possibly way overpay somebody in NIL, put yourself in a huge bind, whatever, to be able to get a portal wide receiver when you need one.
Yeah.
I'm with you. That could be tough.
Yeah. Bryce Kane, his situation, sounds like he was with the twos a lot, if I remember that correct, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, especially with those two guys rotating at that main slot and him being the guy behind them. But kind of makes you wonder, like, if Jay Fair and Robert Lewis are both parts of the puzzle, like, what realistically can Bryce Kane, what kind of market share of targets can he have at the slot receiver position as a true freshman with both of those guys there? I don't know. And I know we want these talented guys on the field right away, but I think you could also make the argument of like, okay, let's, give them a few targets. And then next year, when I think Robert Lewis and Jay Fair will both be gone, I'm not positive on Jay Fair's eligibility situation, but Robert Lewis is done after this year. And so, like, if that happens, okay, cool. Bryce Kane is ready to go as a slot guy moving forward. I think that would make sense.
Yeah, and I keep hearing great things about him still.
Jay Fair's a junior, so he could come back next year.
Yeah, I keep hearing great things about Bryce. Had great 2 practices, regardless of where he lined up in the rotation of reps. But like you said, we may not necessarily be at the point yet where we have to just throw all these talented kids in there right away. We got some guys that maybe can make some plays, and you can bring Bryce on a little bit slower and not so much pressure early to be able to have to be the guy. I think that's good. I think that's kind of ideal. I would imagine is not to have a bunch of guys that should be going to senior prom having to be your go-to guys at spring practice when you're developing this roster for 2024.
Yeah. So, I mean, once again, I think the main message here is, wow, are we in a better spot than a year ago at this position? Because back then it's like, oh my gosh, who's going to do this? And we were kind of holding our breath. Like, I hope we get some guys in that second portal window. Like, I hope it happens. And now it's okay. I think we're good. We just need everybody kind of be on campus, which won't happen until Perry and Malcolm get here in the summer. But just an incredibly better spot than Auburn was a year ago. So, all right, Hank Brown, Auburn quarterback, joins us in just a few moments. But before that, Charlie5, how can people check out everything that you've got going on?
I'm about 80% back. I'm going to be all the way back next week. I promise. I'm going to have.
I'll take your 80% back over most people's 110%, brother.
There you go. So hang in there with me, guys. You can follow me on Twitter at _Charlie_5, and then I'm going to have the top button back. Should be live today. So it's Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then you can catch me in the Locked On Auburn Discord.
All right, our conversation with Hank Brown coming up. Charlie5, first I got to ask you a question.
Oh boy.
Can you imagine driving any other car other than Nissan?
I can't do it.
I can't. I don't even know other cars exist. Why would you? Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further, Charlie5?
I like to go on an adventure.
Yeah. Do you ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner?
I wonder that multiple times a day.
Nissan gets that. Nissan gets the kind of driver that you are. And look, the 2024 Nissan Rogue, it's perfect for city drives and great escapes. I mean, gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are all built right in to the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system.
Infotainment.
It's in the 2024 Nissan Rogue. And also, they've got the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. It's got room up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced availability with 4x4 capability. Nissan gets you. They get it. They understand it. So take Nope, they don't. They don't. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next adventure. That's at shopnissanusa.com. We are now joined by Auburn quarterback Hank Brown. Hank, thank you so much for your time. As always, Coach Freeze, in his first press conference this spring, was asked about the quarterbacks, and he kind of talked about how you guys were all competing. Then it seemed like he was done answering the question. He paused. Then he gave you credit specifically with how you were able to throw in those windy conditions on the first practice. That's got to be a cool thing.
Yes, sir. It was, it was definitely good getting that praise from him. I think the first day was a good day, just getting back into it and, just competing. I'm just really excited to be back and, competing this spring and, being able to have an opportunity to run this new offense and, just really gel with these new receivers and the entire offense as a whole.
How different is it for you? You now know what to expect. You've done this before at the college level and under Coach Freeze. How different is this for you, kind of the second time around going through a spring?
Yeah, it's a big difference. Just being here a year and just having a year of college experience, just practicing with these guys, it's huge. I feel like I've grown so much since I've been in high school, and just being able to, I'd say both physically and mentally, but more on the mental side of just being able to recognize coverage and just being able to play at such a fast pace to where it's just starting to become second nature, where it's just you get a play and you're ready to go. And so I think it's really good this spring just to be able to put that into practice.
Sure. So you mentioned the new receivers, new targets. There's a bunch of them. Cam Coleman's the one that's getting the most discussion physically. I mean, very, very impressive. The fact that he is a true freshman early enrollee, it's pretty incredible. What have you seen from him and some of these other new guys, Hank?
Yeah, specifically from Cam, like you're saying, I mean, physically, he's ready to go. Like he's a stud. I mean, we all know this, but just his ability to go up and win those 50-50 balls is crazy. Like it's just, we're excited to be able to just have him on the offense. Obviously, it's a huge plus.
Has he done that, Hank? Has he already done that? Is he winning those 50-50 battles already?
He has a few times, in one-on-one specifically. But yes, he has. And, I think, like you're saying, physically, he's ready. I think mentally, he's still working. So does every freshman. It's
sure.
And so, he works really hard, and so he's going to get there. So he's obviously going to be a special piece for us. I think another guy that gets talked about a ton too is Bryce Kane, and just his competitiveness and just willingness to work. I think he's done a good job once again, just working to get there mentally, but just super fast, obviously. And so, they've been a great addition to our offense so far up to this point.
What about the transfers, Hank? What have you seen so far from Robert Lewis, the Georgia State transfer, and then Sam Jackson, who, interesting situation, former quarterback transitioning to receiver here? What have you seen from them?
Yeah, so I think, Robert Lewis, first of all, he is very smooth. I think both him and Sam Jackson are very, very smooth receivers, but especially Robert, just his route running ability. He's super smooth out of cuts, and you can tell he's a very experienced player. I think he's someone that will be big for us this year, just as far as, both route running and also just the experience of, knowing situational awareness and be able to also help our younger guys get better as well. But Sam Jackson also is someone who has really, really good hands. His hands are massive, and so he can catch a lot of balls. And I think he's someone who also, can get those 50-50 balls. Maybe someone you wouldn't expect, but I think he is someone who can go up and get some of those 50-50 balls. So that's another big aspect where he can help us. So I think both of them are really good and kind of different in their own ways, but I'm a big fan of both.
Yeah, the targets that you guys are throwing to seem so much larger now than a year ago. And a lot of that has to do with the type of receiver that Hugh Freeze wants to attract and be part of the offense. But Auburn football, all their social media accounts put out a video of you throwing to Rivaldo Fairweather, another guy who has a very large catch radius. As a quarterback, you have to love these guys.
Love it. I mean, it's awesome. Obviously, you can be a great quarterback, but you need guys around you that can help you do that. And as you mentioned, Valdo, I mean, he's as good as they come. He's a very special player. And, obviously we saw in that video. But yeah, it's obviously great having all these guys, and we're just trying to put it together and get this offense to a point where we can use those guys to the best of our ability.
Hank, as far as obviously whatever you're comfortable sharing, but internally, do you guys believe there is a quarterback battle? Hugh Freeze was asked about this at his presser, and he kind of said, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said it was Peyton's job to lose. Does that change anything on how you approach it? Or are you saying, hey, I'm going to give this my all every single day, and I'm here to compete?
Yeah, it doesn't change anything. I think there's a quarterback battle, and I think that, I'm going to give it my all every day, no matter, what is said, what happens, I'm going to give it my all every day. And, my process doesn't change. I'm competing every single day I go out there. And so, I think it's up to me and just competing every day. So.
Yeah, sure. As far as the offensive line, I mean, Percy Lewis being the left tackle, I mean, you've got to feel safe. You have to feel safe as a quarterback, or at least safer with a guy as big as Percy Lewis kind of protecting y'all's blind side there.
100%. I mean, he is a massive human being, and, he's shown some great signs for us just as a quarterback, feeling safe back there in the pocket. He's a great addition, and I think that, we have obviously some guys coming back on the offensive line. Dylan Wade moved to guard. Connor Lew is obviously going to just improve as time goes on. Too Tall, our right tackle, Xavier Miller. And so just all these guys, I feel as a quarterback that I feel safe sitting behind these guys. Some guys with experience, Percy, big old boy at left tackle. And then, we got some guys competing for our other guard spot, but Jeremiah, Tate, guys like that. Just, I feel really confident in those guys and what they can do this year. Yeah.
Hank, we had Malik Blockton, your teammate, on the show yesterday, and he said he goes up against D Wade all the time. And I asked him, like, hey, I heard D Wade's a smack talker. Can you confirm that? He's like, oh, he's the biggest smack talker on the offense. Do you agree with that? Do you think he's the biggest smack talker on the offense?
That's an interesting take. I like the take, but he talks probably the most out of anybody on the offense. I don't know if I'd necessarily say the biggest smack talker.
Okay.
But I definitely could get behind that take of he definitely brings energy and is always talking. So,
who's another candidate? Who's another candidate for the best smack talker on the offense?
Shoot. I'd maybe have to go with Brian Battie, one of our running backs. He's always talking. He's always chopping it up. But yeah, I think those two guys probably lead it for sure.
Yeah. Have you ever done that? Or, I mean, that doesn't really seem like your type of play, Hank, but have you ever just kind of just let a few lines loose and just kind of talk smack to the opposing defense ever?
I wouldn't say that's necessarily my cup of tea. I'm not a big smack talker, but
yeah,
when the game's getting tight, you never know. You never know. So I can't say I haven't done it before, but it's definitely not my.
Sure. Is it weird? Is it a weird feeling? Okay, spring finally gets back. You guys have 2 practices. Very fun, exciting. Glad we're back out here. And then, all right, y'all are off for a week for spring break. Is that a weird thing at all for you?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Just, starting with 2 practices before spring break and, just, starting and then having to kind of restart when we get back. But honestly, I kind of like getting into it early and just getting a little head start. But it's also, it's a little tough on the players just getting this break. But I think it's an opportunity for us where we can really improve and be intentional with this break, because if we're not, then we're just going to come back and it's like we're restarting. But if we're watch film, reevaluate ourselves in those first 3 days, just being able to, grow and get better and continue to learn this offense, then it's something that will be beneficial. And so I think that getting that, memo across the entire team to where we can lock in over this break and be smart, then we'll it'll benefit us for sure.
Yeah, totally. Hank, thank you so much for your time as always, and best of luck throughout the rest of spring.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much to Charlie5. Thank you so much to Hank Brown. Please like the video. Please subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.